Alright guys, welcome aboard. Thought I'd do a quick little training hop here in the scooter. Going to take it for a couple trips around the patch. I'm going to try and record a couple of these and show how I'm setting the aircraft up to try and get semi-decent runs around the CV pad. I'm using about a -20 mil setting on the gun sight. You can see that puts the reference bar here roughly on the horizon. Here's kind of the center Pipper circle, there's a middle circle, and then the outer circle. So as I try and describe things later in text, that's what I'm talking about. So without further ado, let's go ahead and taxi out. We're going to try Cat 4. It's one of the things I wanted to do is show that it is possible to taxi the thing with the without nose wheel steering, which is something I wasn't sure I was going to be able to do. Center. Alright, there we go. So I'm usually bringing it up to around 70% with the brakes locked. Come off the brakes, let it start moving, and then just start dragging the left brake a little bit. It's about a third to half depression on my Cytec pedals. Taxiing a jet that's free caster is very much about inertia, so you kind of want to keep moving. So you're going to keep the throttle between 65 and 70%. Keeping in mind that there's a weather vane tendency, and there's also an issue where the caster kind of breaks over and then doesn't want to come back. So now I'm stabbing left and right, a little more power. Stab the left, stab the left. See how close that is. Oh wow. Well, sometimes it works out. Alright, off the brakes. Shuttle. Alright, we're going to set the trim just below 4. That's Raquel Welch, by the way. Top end to half flaps. Alright, radar altimeter is set. Altimeter is correct. We got a speed and 20. Okay, looks good. Sweep the controls. Alright, I'm going to power up to halfway. Alright, let's go. Alright, 20 degrees of bank, 20 degrees of heading change, 175 flaps are coming up. Trim down a little bit. There's 250 knots, back to about 80% power. Level off at 500 to 600 feet, back to BRC, which is about 268. Got the picket ships, kind of help us navigate around the pattern. Okay, when you get to 500 feet and 250 knots, you can, if you want, use the autopilot with altitude hold. That'll give you a reference trim setting for 250 knots. So autopilot, altitude hold. Check the switches, looks good. So I'm going to set probably about 80% power. It's about 2,000 pounds per minute, 2,000 pounds an hour on the fuel flow. Looking pretty good. One thing I have noticed is that it will take whatever minor roll you've got on and keep it. So Anyway, something to be aware of. I'm having some tracking issues with my reverb lately. F5, F1, F1.
Marshall 100, marking ops 26846, Angels 0.5, state 2.5.
Okay, there's the 7-mile picket ship.
100, Mother's weather is visibility 10 plus mile. Scattered clouds at above 10,000. Altimeter is 29093. Case 1 recovery expected DRC 268. Report see me at 10.
Now we're going to go to 30 degrees of bank, and we're going to use the second line above the outer circle to set our turn. And we're going to hold this, a little bit of power to hold 250 knots. This is important for the turn in for the initial F2.
100, see you at 10.
Update state, switch tower.
100, state 2.5.
It's about 85% power here. It's going to hold us at around 250 knots. Again, we want to hold kind of that second notch above the outer circle on the gun sight and about 30 degrees of bank angle. We're going to come back around towards 90 degrees, which will be our reciprocal for running down to the boat. Alright, there's 2,000 feet, and let the nose relax. When you're in a turn, you put the inner circle roughly on the horizon. That'll be level flight. And we're going to go to about 095, wings level, not climbing. We're going to do the autopilot again. Got a little fast. Going to take this opportunity to drop the hook.
Tower 100, overhead Angels 2, state 2.4.
100, tower, roger, BRC 268, signal is Charlie.
So
100.
we're going to look on the BDHI here. We see that we are just about 5 miles, which is perfect. So we're beam. We're going to go ahead and autopilot off. We're going to leave the throttle where it's at. I'm just going to push over. Going to put the wings right on the horizon on the BDHI there. We're going to take this out to about 6 miles from the boat. That's about as early as we want to turn in. Coming down to 800 feet for the initial. So I'm not changing trim, I'm just holding the nose down. Now we start to relax. There's 6 miles. We're going to roll into a 30-degree bank now. And let the airplane stabilize here, and then we're going to work for 800 feet. 30 degrees of bank. This will end up putting us in a pretty good position for the initial. Now I'm starting to go from neutral stick to just a little back stick, trying to hold that pipper right on the horizon. You're going to get a slight descent. We want to come down to 800 feet or a little high. Working to maintain that 30 degrees of bank. Now it takes a little more back stick and a little bit of power now to hold 250 knots. Okay, we're through our 90 degrees. We got the boat in sight. Working for 800 feet, 250 knots. It's almost hands off because we use the autopilot to set it at 250 knots earlier. This is going to pull us in on the initial just a little tighter than I expected, but we'll make it work. So we're going to relax the turn rate. We're going to wait for the two picket ships, the one that's behind the carrier and the one that's in front of the carrier. We're going to use those to help us align. So we're still about 5 miles after the boat, so that's okay. Again, 250 knots, 800 feet, working for that. You can see the reference there for the inner circle, the pipper, and the horizon at 250 knots, minus 20 mil depression. Pretty good reference. So now we're going to come around to the BRC. Be right around 270 degrees. Go 800 feet, 250 knots. Getting some stuttering in the background, not sure what's going on there. Alright, hook is down. Deck is clear. Looking really good, by the way. Gotta be real careful with pushing the stick around when we're in close. So this forward picket ship is at about 1.5 miles. So we typically want to make sure that we've started our brake turn by this picket ship. So there's 1 mile, coming up on 1.25 miles. There's 1.5 miles. Things happen fast. Boards are out. Not changing the throttle. We're trying to make it a level turn. Alright, 225 knots. There's gear. We can start the flaps down using backstick only. Starting to trim. Now forward stick, we don't want a balloon. Got full flaps. We want about 6 degrees of trim. 6 units rather. Alright, so we want to arrest that descent rate. Power's coming up and a lot of back stick. We basically want to end up with about 6 to 7 degrees of trim on speed at around 600 feet. So it's a little more bouncing around than I'm normally doing, but it's not easy. So now we're going to be running between about 80 and 90% RPM. We're 600 feet, we want to stop here. So we want to hold this altitude, let the speed bleed off, add a little bit of power to maintain. Coming up on the Iowa, which looks really good. 600 feet. Okay, there's the round out. We use right around 15 degrees of bank for us, a little bit more. Alright, no more than 500 feet a minute descent through this section. We basically want to come through 500 feet and sort of hold that here as we come through the 90. A little bit of back pressure, slow the descent rate down. Now we're going to start looking for the ICLS needles to help us out. Power's a little high, so we're going to come back more towards 82 to 85. A bit of back stick. Now we're going to tighten the turn up so we can capture the localizer when it swings in. About 250 foot per minute descent rate right now. We're below the glide slope. It's going to work out pretty good. So again, you don't chase the glide slope up. You basically just wait until you catch it. So we're not climbing. We're just going to maintain until we catch it. There it is. Power's back out. Now we're going to use the center lines on the F2. F1. That was bad timing. Okay. Now we got to push for the deck a little bit. A little fast. Now that's a pretty common complaint from Dude. So that one wasn't very clear. We'll go ahead and shoot another one. We'll use Cat 2 this time. So not very clean there in the terminal phase, and what I've noticed is I'm having that same issue in the middle. Very, very common. So if you can be close to 450 to 500 feet as you turn into the groove, that seems to make it a little bit easier. Alright, those flaps. Trim. Shuttle. Alright, so hook's coming down. .400 feet, we can start our turn. Okay, there's 500 feet. We want to level off at not higher than 6. Again, using power and pitch. Keep coming around. We're going to be about 600 feet initially. Alright, there's full flaps. There's the boat. Or there's the Iowa, rather. Which is our visual reference. There's about 7 nose up. Okay, level. There's the round out. So we're starting our turn. We want to be on speed or close to it. We're trying to hold level. You can see that in the turn, that requires around 88%. We're showing just under 2,000 pounds of fuel. Alright, so we're a little high. We can start working down now. So to work down, we just take a little bit of power out and keep the nose up. That'll help us build a descent rate. Looking about 300 feet a minute right now, which is okay. As we turn into the wind, there's 500 feet. This is going to look a little better, I think. On 85%. Okay, this is going to be on or slightly high for glide slope, I think. There's glide slope. Alright, this is good. Alright, now we need a bit more descent rate, so we're going to chase it a little bit, but carefully. So right there, a little power, little power. All right, that was a 2-wire. Okay. All right, so we're going to do one more. We're going to launch straight into the pattern. And then I'm going to see if I've got useful footage. Shuttle. Alright, so we're going to launch into the pattern, so the gear's going to stay down. I'm going to put the boards out and go full flaps as we're climbing out. Come right back into the pattern. Alright, we're 6.5 units nose up, around 87–88%. A little bit of pulling on the stick and we can basically maintain level. Now we're switching to a tailwind, so we want a little more power and a little more upturn. Climb, so we're going to use pitch and power. And the power's coming back in. There we go. There's the round out. A little bit of power. Rolling about 20 degrees. A little more power. We don't want to descend that fast. So 1 to 200 feet a minute through the first 90 is pretty good. We basically want to kind of hold ourselves at about 500 indicated coming around the corner. Now, again, we're going to round the corner into the wind here. About 85–86%. Just about 7 degrees nose up. Now this is going to show us a little low on the glide slope, I think, as we round the corner here. So there's a balloon as we turn into the wind. There's glide slope. There's localizer. Right around 82% there. See how much easier it is to follow the glide slope. A little bit of power, a little bit of nose up. Ball looks okay, glide slope is okay. Ball's a little low. back a little bit. All right. Okay, that's going to be enough, so, all right. Flaps and boards are up. So one thing I thought would be fun to finish is we'll do a little taxi demo here. So right around this speed, you have pretty decent, you know, light taps on the brakes are going to work. So what I'm going to try and do is come up here to the edge of the carrier, get a quick turn around. I'm doing this by memory. I don't remember exactly where the gear is. See how it goes. So we're going to put a little power in. So we can do a very quick turn with the brake locked. Now we're tapping, tapping, trying to get the nose to come around. There we go. Alright, so still very sloppy, but at least it shows what's possible. Love the super populated flex deck here. We've got S3s, H3s, C2, S2, well, C2 and E2. Bunch of scooters, Prowler. So now comes the hard part. That's to see if we can taxi onto the elevator here. Now this is the issue. Sometimes you get the wheel starts and then you get the weather vane tendency, and then it's really hard to fix it, which is what I'm facing right now. So I'm not on the elevator, but I'm out of the landing zone. So there you have it, guys.